Welcome back to another episode of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Policki. He's Jacob Alberta. We're a Minnesota sports podcast, so if you're a sports fan, especially a Minnesota sports fan, please hit that subscribe button to tune into all our latest Minnesota sports videos. Today we're talking Minnesota Twins. We haven't done too many videos on the Twins so far this year, but they've been having a really solid start to the season here, Alberta. They're 18 and 11 through their first 29 games, leading the division by 3 games. Granted, the rest of our division hasn't started off that great, but just it's been impressive. I mean, the pitching's been a little better than expected, I think. We've given up the least amount of runs in our division, which I think is impressive considering I think we thought Chicago and Cleveland would for sure have better pitching than us. And runs scored as well. Cleveland actually leads our division in that category, but the Twins are right there in second place. It seems like they've been in a lot of like lower scoring games, and I think offense has just been down in general across the MLB. But the Twins are finding ways to win these games, whether it's, clutch base hits or like yesterday or a couple days ago, Jorge Polanco hitting a solo home run. Basically, is the only run of the game. Like they're finding all these different ways, but it's intriguing just because, you and I both kind of thought the Twins would maybe hang around 500, maybe be a couple games better. But the way they've started this season's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is more than you could have asked for to this point. Now 29 games in. I think what's setting us apart from last year's team really is obviously a lot of things, but in my opinion, probably the biggest thing is the close games and just finding ways to win. Because I think that now with these 3 one-run wins against the Athletics over the weekend, I believe we've won, 6 or 7 one-run games in a row, which is kind of unprecedented, obviously not sustainable, but still, like that says something about, honestly, the pitching staff as a whole, I would say, and just ability to find ways to win, whether it be a low-scoring game, high-scoring game, whatever it might be. I really am liking what I'm seeing. I think really the pitching starts with the starting rotation. Really, obviously, we haven't really had anybody who's been just a total liability out there. I know Bundy's definitely come back down these last couple starts, having 3 good ones to start the season. But everybody else has been pretty steady Eddie, I guess. Nobody's gotten blown up in any starts. So I think that's encouraging. And the bullpen, even, like, I know sometimes it can get a little hairy. And when we're rolling out guys I personally don't like Stashak and Theo Bar and stuff. And, I mean, even Duffy's had his ups and downs for sure. Like, we're still finding ways. I mean, throw up Pagan there. I mean, I was there at the game on Friday night from that opener against the A's, and then it's like he constantly walks a guy or two. His whip is terrible, but like his ERA is good. So he lets guys on base, but then in the end he finds a way to get them out and end the game there. But it's like it doesn't really give you a warm feeling throughout that inning. It just takes till you get to the end. You're like, okay, I can live with this. We won the game, but still, it's like it's a little rough road getting there, and like to see that be a little less stressful. But I mean, a win's a win at the end of the day. So I'd say just the pitching staff as a whole, I gotta credit them quite a bit, and then the lineup right now, I don't think is lighting the world on fire by any means, but I think they're doing enough to win, and hopefully they'll just continue to get better as the season goes on, especially with these shiny new prospects we've been bringing up here lately, making all their major league debuts or continuing to get more bats in the big leagues, building off of what they started early this season or last year. Because, I mean, now we have Royce Lewis making his debut, his first 3 games. He has 3 hits. He's 3 for 10, his first 10 at bats, and then you got Jose Miranda. He had a home run Friday night. That was a missile. That was cool. Obviously, the batting average isn't great right now, but again, a very small sample size. And then you got guys like Kirilloff, who's definitely been struggling, still get more bats in the bigs. And then same thing with Larnach. Larnach's been putting together a solid campaign. So you feel like you're getting a little bit of the old and the new here. Polanco's been hot of late on that hitting streak, but then you're also getting all these prospect performances. So it feels like a nice blend, and that's really what good teams end up rounding out to in successful seasons. So I think this feels like a perfect mix for a team that can definitely get to the playoffs, and let's hope we get to playoffs. I really think the only competition I see in our division as like legitimate threat is the White Sox. I'm still not a huge believer in the Guardians, the Tigers, the Royals. The Guardians will hang around, but in the end I think they'll fizzle out. But the White Sox, I think that's the biggest one to keep an eye on. So I think if we get to the playoffs, who knows? Maybe we got some different juju now, but I think it's getting there first and then see what happens. But again, long way to go. 29 games in, but encouraging start nonetheless. But anyways, Bailey, what have you thought of this recent run? I mean, 14 to 17, that's pretty nice, obviously.
Yeah, and it hasn't been against like complete cupcakes either. I mean, we went to Tampa Bay and won 2 out of 3. Guess I'm trying to think of what some other like good series have been because we just
we
got done with
swept
the
the White
A's.
Sox.
Yeah, we swept the White Sox, and that was in Chicago, wasn't it?
No, that was at home.
Okay, that was at home. Yeah. So, I mean, either way, sweeping the White Sox is good because obviously divisional opponent, like you said, they're probably the one true threat to this team.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been impressive. Obviously, we've talked about Buxton and how he can win MVP as long as he stays healthy. Carlos Correa was finally starting to turn it around and really start ripping the ball. He took a pitch off the hand. It sounds like he'll be day-to-day, which is good news. But at the same time, it's like, man, Royce Lewis is so intriguing. He's played a few games now. He's made some really good plays at shortstop. He's gotten a hit in every single game. And now we might have to send him back down in a couple of days. Like, it's a good problem to have because there's so many guys I feel like that can play. Like, it'd be fun to move Royce Lewis to third base, but you have Gio Urshela, who's been solid. Miranda is probably going to be a third baseman of the future at some point because I'm guessing Kirilloff, assuming he pans out, is going to be your first baseman. So Miguel Ceno is basically completely out of the picture at this point. He had a horrible start to the season. Now he had knee surgery. He'll be out for a couple months probably. And so Kirilloff will get time at first. Miranda's going to get time at first. Arise had been playing at first. So there's so many, especially like infielders, there's so many guys that could play. It's like, how do you pick and choose who's going to stay and who's going to go? You know, like I personally would love to see like Miranda stay up. And if that means you have to trade like a Gio or Urshela, I'm fine with that. I guess that doesn't bother me, but I don't see this Twins team doing that until, you know, around the deadline or something. So it's definitely interesting. The pitching has been good for sure. Paddock got hurt in this last game against the A's, which was unfortunate, but you know, bullpen has been pretty solid. Yohan Duran is obviously a stud. You mentioned Pagan. He's shaky at best, but I mean, he gets the job done most of the time. So,
Yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting collection of players. There's definitely some excitement, obviously with Buxton and Correa leading the way, but then even just all these other supplemental players. Polanco's starting to heat up. He's got a 9-game hitting streak. All the young prospects you just mentioned. Now Kirilloff is finally back in the mix as well. Hopefully he can start to hit the ball. There's so much promise here that I really don't think they can go wrong any way they slice it here.
Yeah, it's nice that you feel like we can mix match in a lot of different ways and really not miss a beat when even some of our best players are out. Like, for instance, this last game against the A's, albeit the A's aren't a great team, but still, it's like your two big stars, Correa and Buxton, are both out of the lineup, but you still find a way to win. And
Yep.
I think that's a testament, like you said, to the depth of this team with these prospects that we got. There's a lot of talent there to be excited about. And it's also interesting to see this play out just because these are all the prospects that this regime brought in at the very beginning, like Royce Lewis, first round pick. That was the first pick they made in general of the tenure back in 2017. Then that same draft in the second round got Ryan Jeffers, who's the primary catcher now. And then the season after that, you take Trevor Larnach, who's now appears to be the everyday left fielder. And then you also got Jose Miranda, another acquisition of this regime. And then you got Kirilloff, who this one was before the Falvine, I should say, but still another first round pick from the last number of years that you kept around all this time, waiting to see how he'd play in the bigs. So I'd say that there's just so much to get excited about. Obviously, not all these guys are going to pan out. It's hard to say which one at this point, but still, if you get hit on more than you miss, I guess I would say between there's like 5 of them and just rattle off there, and you're going to be in some good shape going forward. So I think this is huge for this team to just like keep on rolling there, help us keep winning, just so like guys like Correa can miss a little time and you're not just you're not screwed. And it's like Buxton can kind of be in and out a little bit, taking rest so he doesn't miss extended periods of time. So I think that goes a long ways towards just not staying afloat, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So I'm excited to see them continue to grow, obviously get more bats too, and really see what these guys really are.
Yeah, and another guy, and bringing up Buxton too, and how he's usually nicked up. It seems like every couple of weeks he gets a new injury, but as long as he's not going on the IL, I'm okay with it. If he has to take a couple games off, but a guy that I've been impressed with is Gilberto Celestino.
Yeah,
I mean he's filled in admirably. He's been a great fielder, but I mean he's also been pretty good at the plate. He's hitting over 300 right now, and he just brings a different dynamic as a fourth outfielder that the Twins haven't had in several years. I mean, Jake Cave I'm glad he's not on the roster. Let's put it that way. They had Kyle Garlick up for a little while before he got hurt. He was kind of mashing a little bit, but he really only mashes left-handers.
Yep.
Celestino's just been impressive, and I think he's a better fielder than Garlick is too. So,
Yes.
He's a guy that, if you need Buxton to DH a game, you got Celestino playing center, you keep Kepler in right, you can keep Kepler at his primary position. I think that's massive. Going into the season, I was talking about how I really wish the Twins had signed like a true like backup center fielder type player. Just you have to account for Buxton missing games, and it seems like Celestino is going to be able to fill in that role pretty nicely here. And then you got Nick Gordon as well, who, I mean, he hasn't been overwhelmingly impressive at the plate, but he's good in the field, can play multiple positions. So those are some other secondary guys that obviously don't have the high remarks of like a Miranda or a Royce Lewis or Kirilloff and Larnach, but they're also prospects that can contribute on this team.
Yes, for sure. I love that you called out Celestino there. Yeah, like you said, he's batting over 300, albeit again in some small sample sizes, but encouraging nonetheless. And for a while there, he was actually one of, like, when he first got signed as an international free agent, he was one of the most highly coveted guys. Like, Houston gave him a bunch of guaranteed money in respect to international free agents and how that goes. So, I mean, for what it's worth, they gave him more money than the Nationals ended up giving Juan Soto. So, like at one point in time, like, this guy had a lot of promise. So now maybe it feels like it's finally come to the surface and just kind of under the radar. Have all these other big names that are all coming up and playing a lot right now that people want to talk about. But I think Celestino can contribute in his own right. And it's super nice because he's a right-handed bat compared to all these other guys in our outfield. Like, besides Buxton, like, who else bats right-handed? Like Garlick? And then, because, I mean, you got Larnach, left-handed bat. Kirilloff, if he plays in the outfield, that's a left-handed bat. Kepler, that's another left-handed bat. Yeah. We've been beating the drum and how, at least before this season, it was like the Jay Cave show every time Buxton was hurt. And again, another left-handed bat. So it's kind of nice to have something in some resemblance to Buxton just hit at the very least against left-handed pitching. And like you said, just be that backup out in center field. So then it's not necessarily falling on Kepler. So then then you kind of leave Kepler and right. So I find that to be very nice too. And again, going on, I guess, with talking about these young players that we have, I think going more to the pitching staff, you got to talk about not only Duran throwing all this heat, like coming out and striking all these guys from the A's with like 3 consecutive 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, topping out at 103, which is just ridiculous. But then you think about Winder and his first 2 career starts, 15 Ks, no earned runs. I believe it was 14 innings pitched. It ended up amounting to. I mean, this guy's been dealing, and I think that's if you can get that out of Winder when another guy that's kind of flown under the radar as far as starting pitching prospects go. I think that the talk has always been obviously about Joe Ryan when he got brought up last year, and I know Milosevic is still he's getting closer. He just made a nice debut in AAA the other day, and then also you got everybody's waiting for Duran to come up too, and I mean you got all these arms, but now you got another guy that's kind of emerging, which is pretty nice to see. And obviously, let's hope he can keep this positive momentum going. And if he's the real deal, I mean, that's great because he's obviously going to be under contract for a long time. So that's one less thing you have to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, Winder has been super impressive. Duran, obviously, we mentioned, but I think Winder being good is massive because if a guy like Dylan Bundy just keeps having these train wreck type starts, you can just DFA him and not care at all. Paddock's on the injured list. Ober is injured right now, and Ober showed, back end of the rotation type promise. So if you can get him back, then you have 3, younger pitchers that are, in your rotation. And then that kind of accounts for like if Paddock doesn't necessarily turn out or if Sonny Gray keeps having injury issues or something along those lines. So it seems that they have depth there, like much better depth than like the Devin Smeltzers and the Randy Dobnaks of the world of just these last couple of years. Yes, Lewis Thorpe, who's no longer in the organization, thank goodness. So yeah, it's a huge breath of fresh air. But Joe Ryan, man, that dude is a stud. I mean, he is definitely he's the ace of this staff, like no question in my mind. I don't care how young he is. He's got the swag and the moxie. He pitches fast, which I like. Like between pitches is almost no time at all. He gets right back on the mound and throws the ball. So I like Joe Ryan a lot. I'm a big fan of his stuff.
Extremely decisive. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. He pitches with, conviction. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. He's been phenomenal. So there's good things to like basically all around on this team. And it's incredible how much of a turnaround they made within 1 year. But you think about it, You trade Nelson Cruz, you get some really good prospects in return. You trade Jose Barrios, you get some really good prospects in return. I mean, those guys, like we mentioned last year, when at the time of the trades, a lot of those guys were close to MLB ready to begin with. And now you're kind of seeing some of that already mixed with the prospects you had stored in AAA and AA that are making a jump this year. That's massive for making a quick leap back to competitiveness after just a horrible season last year.
Yeah, 100%. You're really reaping the rewards for mortgaging off what we had left in the middle of last season in the middle of the lost season, unfortunately. But think about that Nelson Cruz one. That's a prime example of just crazy return, considering it's like Cruz only under contract for the rest of 2021, and he was going to be gone. So to get Joe Ryan, who's now turned into more than you could ever hope for as far as potentially being the ace of the staff. I mean, he is right now. It's just if he can keep this going more. I know he's only made, probably 10 starts in his big league career, maybe give or take 1 or 2 or something. But still, I mean, the early returns are significant and they're massive. Like, he's been fantastic. But especially considering Cruz, too, if you go back to the middle of last year when he got traded through to this point, the 2022 season, he's now with the Nationals. He's only hit a little over 200, so it feels like you dealt him at the exact right time, which, I mean, is unfortunate. I don't want to see Nelson Cruz go down like that because he's one of my favorite players. Like that guy's such an easy dude to root for. But I mean, to get Joe Ryan here now, I mean, that's an incredible return that helps you not only now but in the future. Again, all these prospects, when you have all this team control, it's going to help you a lot just as time goes on here with all your other contributing players in the lineup now that are coming up.
Absolutely. So right before we wrap up here, how do you see this shaking out? Who do you think between all these young guys, and maybe there's a couple obvious names, but who do you think sticks here? I mean, I would imagine 1 or 2 of these guys stick for the remainder of the season. Who do you think sticks between this group of young prospects? We'll just stay on the offensive side because it seems like a lot of these young pitchers are probably going to stick around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these pitchers, assuming they keep turning in these good outings, I don't see how you could possibly send them back down in favor of these guys like Dylan Bundy or something. So, speaking just as far as the lineup goes, I think Royce, no matter how good he does this week when Correa's back, I think he's going back down. But that's just something in your back pocket, though, to keep in mind, which is great. But Larnach, he's hitting too well right now to go back down. I think he deserves a spot. So really, I think the only thing up in the air is I feel like you can have both Kirilloff and Miranda, in my opinion. So I think it kind of comes down to that. But at the same time, I mean, maybe you can.
If Urshela goes down, that clears a wide path for Miranda to stay up here.
Exactly, yeah, because then you play Miranda at third and Kirilloff at first. But it's just if Miranda, granted, Miranda's not setting the world on fire at the plate yet either, so like he's not significantly better than Kirilloff right now. But I mean, it's something to think about too. And I guess that's really what it comes down to for me. I think they'd opt in favor of Kirilloff just because he has the slightly more experience that they want to see continue to play out. And Miranda, it's another thing like Royce Lewis where he just came up, so you get him some looks, get him back to AAA playing every day, and then get him back up again for good. But so I gotta say probably the guys we came into the season with Larnach and Kirilloff, but I'd say Royce and Miranda are very close. But we have enough injuries the way it is. I feel like you can always find ways to get these guys in the lineup and not have to make these tough decisions too often.
That's true. I mean, the way that these baseball players are getting hurt nowadays, it's like, I mean, you're going to have to cycle these guys through. So the good thing is AAA team is right across the river in St. Paul.
Yes.
They don't have to worry too much about like a distance type thing. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it though. And who, come end of season, who's going to be the prospects that are really emerging as key pieces of this team. I think that's going to be probably one of the funnest things to look forward to this season. Obviously outside of the Buxton and Correa aspect. So, any other final thoughts from you, I guess?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I should have prefaced that Larnach assumption on him not being hurt. I realized he just wanted them to 10-day IL, but I think once he's healthy and able, I think he'll be brought back into it just because, I mean, the guy has been mashing this year. He can finally hit breaking balls because last year that was his big problem was he could hit fastballs all day long, but he just couldn't solve the breaking ball. But now it feels like he's been able to adjust to that in a big way. So that's why I think he's safe. It's just like the body of work so far this year is just too good to not bring him back to the major league club.
Right, and like you mentioned, he was a 2018 first-round pick. He was actually picked a year after Royce Lewis was, which kind of blew my mind when I found that out. But
Right.
yeah, he's been impressive, and he can play in the outfield, so that's obviously huge. And I agree. I think once he's back from the IL, he'll just be penciled into that left field position. So
For sure.
Kirilloff's got some work to do, even though he's probably probably the most highly regarded of these prospects outside of Royce Lewis.
Yep. Totally.
So he's got some work to do just to prove that he can hit. But I think first base is probably going to be his position. Unless like Kepler goes down, then they might need him in the outfield or something like that. But they can deal with that when that time comes. But yeah, it'll be super interesting. I love the depth of this team. Just a complete change from the way it was a year ago. So it's always good to see. And that will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please click the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram and let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. What's been most impressive to you about this Twins team? What do you think of all these prospects that are getting major league action? And I guess what are you expecting from here on out in terms of who's going to be up, who's going to be down? And do you think the Twins can keep this rolling? So until next time, thanks for watching.